Hey, Randy Hunter here from BeginningSax.com. Now in this quick licks and tips video, I want to demystify this altered dominant scale. You know, I get questions about the altered dominant scale, and just because of the term altered dominant, I think people are often a little bit nervous about approaching this scale and are really not sure quite how to use it. So I hope to answer some of those questions in this video. Now, the sound of the altered dominant. So some pretty neat exotic sounds are found in that scale, and I love the term exotic sounds with the in relation to the altered dominant. I picked that one up from Mark Levine from his jazz theory book. So anyway, let's get down to first learning about the altered dominant scale. Now it's called the altered dominant scale because it's got all of the possible alterations that you can add to a dominant scale. Now let's think about it for a second. The dominant scale, or the dominant chord, already has a dominant scale already has a major third. That's one of the defining characteristics of dominant: major third and minor seven. So if you've got a major third and a minor seven, those are typically the defining terms for a dominant scale. So dominance, we can add all kinds of other alterations. You know, we've got the sharp 11 scale, the Lydian dominant scale. We've got the flat 9 scale, that's the diminished scale. But the altered dominant scale has all the possible alterations. It's got the flat 9, the sharp 9, the major third, the sharp 11, which is the same as the sharp 4. Now I probably should have mentioned the 9s are the same as 2 is if you're working up the scale. So the root, flat 9, sharp 9, major third, sharp 11. So we've got flat 9, sharp 9, sharp 11. That's 3 alterations, one more to go, and it can be called the sharp 5 or the flat 13. And then we're up to the 7, the minor 7. Now, we'll talk about how all these things come into play in just a little bit, but first let's get down to learning the scale. The altered dominant scale is derived from a mode of the melodic minor. Now here we go again with some scales that might be difficult to understand at first, depending on how you go about learning them. So let's do a quick and easy way of learning the melodic minor scale. Now, the altered dominant that I'm using is B, the B altered dominant, and it's based on the C melodic minor scale. So the way you can learn the melodic minor scale, and keep in mind you probably heard about melodic minor in classical where you have different notes ascending and then you have descending. Jazz is much easier. We have the same notes ascending and descending in the melodic minor. So let's take the C major scale for a moment. Melodic minor has one note that's different. It's got a minor third. Everything else is from the major scale, major 6, major 7. So when I flat that E, the third, I have. That's the C melodic minor scale. The altered dominant scale, the B altered dominant, has exactly the same notes as the C melodic minor. It's the 7th step of the C melodic minor scale, so we'll call it the Locrian mode of melodic minor. So I'm going to start on B, and I'm going to play the notes from the C melodic minor scale. So I play B to B, and the only note that was altered or changed is the E flat. Everything else is natural. B, C, D, E flat, F, G, A, B. So that gives me the B altered dominant scale. Now, The altered dominant scale can be used on dominants with multiple alterations. So if you've got a dominant, the chord symbol might say altered. It might say ALT. The chord symbol might say flat 13. It might be like B7 flat 13. You'll also see B7 sharp 9. Sharp 9 scale can be created from the diminished, or the sharp 9 chord can be created from the diminished scale as well. But more and more these days, I think we're finding that pianists create that sharp 9 chord from the altered dominant scale, so it'll have the flat 13 in it. Now, the only scale with the alterations that you start to see that you really can't use the altered dominant scale on is a dominant sharp 11 scale. So if you, or sharp 11 chord, so if you saw a B7 sharp 11, you would not want to use the altered dominant scale. There's another scale known as the Lydian dominant that will go with that particular chord, but we'll deal with that one later. So, and even on chords that have less alterations, like if you see a B7 flat 9, a lot of times I'll still use the altered dominant scale in some typical altered dominant sounding lines over that chord, just because those alterations have a tendency to pull or lead into the chord of resolution. Now, dominant chords, if you think about it, if you remember, dominant chords are 5 chords that are taking us to 1 chords. Now, altered dominant chords typically are 5 of a minor chord. So, maybe you know the tune Alone Together, and I picked that one because it's in the same key that has this this particular altered dominant chord that we're working with right now. It's in tenor sax key of E minor. So if we use the B7 altered scale, the B altered scale, in that 2-5, the F sharp minor 7 flat 5 or F sharp half diminished to B7 flat 9, resolving to the E minor, we get a really neat resolution. So it resolves very well to that particular chord. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the different uses because we'll get so spread out in topics that you won't be able to keep all of this in mind as you practice this skill. So what I'd rather do is just take a moment and show you a really typical altered dominant type sound that focuses on several of the most important alterations in the altered dominant scale. Now, the flat 9, the sharp 9, and the flat 13. Those are really the most characteristic sounds of the altered dominant scale, at least to me. So when I play B, C, D, D sharp, that's root to flat 9 to sharp 9 to third, then I'm going to go to the flat 13, that's the 6. I'm sorry, that's the G. That's a great place to start in learning to get some typical altered dominant sounds. So my suggestion to you would be to practice the altered dominant scale in a number of different keys, hopefully all 12, and each time you play the altered dominant scale, go back and play, and then maybe just, then you get some really good altered dominant sounds to get started with. Okay? Good luck with the altered dominant scale.